Welcome, everybody, to Save Los Angeles, the podcast with a surprise twist today that's all about saving our great county, supporting John Cruikshank running for the 4th District County Board of Supervisors. John, what's happening today?
Oh, hey, Mike. Great to see you today. And, what's happening is it's a sunny day here in Los Angeles County, and we have a county to save.
Indeed we do, and there's lots of things not so sunny happening in the county of Los Angeles, and we're going to get into that. But everybody out there, and John, I was telling you before the show, I'm actually amazed at the number of people that reach out to me and to you that actually listen to this podcast. It seems sometimes, I know we're going to be putting the podcast up soon, and yes, we're in a room doing a recording on microphones, but so many people actually listen to this, and soon a lot more people are going to be listening, aren't they?
Oh, it's super exciting. There's going to be more people listening. We're going to be going to live radio weekly, so this is going to be a great opportunity for us to reach even more people. But you're right. I hear from people saying all the time they're listening to the podcast, they're hearing the messaging, and they want to help.
So everyone out there, what we're talking about is this. You still will be able to find this podcast on the KABC stream, okay? But in addition, you are going to find this on Sunday mornings starting at 8 o'clock following the Andy Bales show. So it's going to be 1 full hour all about Los Angeles on Sunday morning. And John, that's pretty exciting news.
It's pretty exciting, and what's really exciting is I didn't realize that I would have the opportunity to follow Andy Bales and his show because last week I just had the opportunity to visit the Union Rescue Mission where he's the CEO and got to see his amazing operation and all the work that his team is doing. So, that's quite an honor to be following him and being on Sunday mornings where everyone's going to have an opportunity to tune in, not just from the podcast or the website, but also from their car now.
Before we forget, tell everybody your website because I'm absent-minded, John.
No, thank you. You're not absent-minded. So the website is johncruikshank.us.
John needs support, and lots of members of the community are coming out to support John. And Friday night was an absolute pleasure upon pleasure, as you had quite a successful fundraiser that we had, I guess was actually in Torrance. We thought it was in Redondo Beach. We were corrected rapidly in your district, didn't we?
Well, we were corrected by the mayor of Torrance, who was in attendance.
Who should know where it is.
Yeah, in attendance as well. So the address has a mailing address of Redondo Beach. It's right there on the ocean, and we are enjoying the company. The host was Dr. Ken Wright, who had run for Congress, and he's an accomplished eye doctor, eye surgeon. And he's kind of written the book on that whole subject, and he welcomed us into his home. We had a number of people. It was literally a packed house. Great time.
Great time. We raised a good chunk of money for your campaign. And I got to tell you, and everyone out there, it's Save Los Angeles. We're going to talk about some of the reasons why John's running in just a bit. But John, when I make the drive from where I live and get at Kenneth Wright's house, just as the sun was setting, again, a bad metaphor for someone my age, over the ocean, do you remember why California is so beautiful and why L.A. County is worth saving?
I think we talked about it, too, is we could just look right out that window and say, why would anyone leave Los Angeles County? It's just such a beautiful, amazing place. The only reason anyone would possibly leave LA County is because our government's messing things up.
And we'll be getting to that. And this Saturday morning, by the way, coming up, which I believe is the 12th, you're going to be, I think it's in Glendora.
I'm going to be out in Glendora. That's a little bit north of the district, but once again, still in Los Angeles County. Get a chance to talk to more people out there. And I tell people the 4th District obviously is the one that I'm running for, but LA County is LA County, and the supervisors should be representing all of LA County. And my goal is to work with whoever's left on the board and make LA County a better place. So I'm going to have the opportunity to be up in Glendora for a breakfast meeting and tell people all about the things that we talk about every week and how we're going to save Los Angeles.
And that's at the Pepper Tree, right?
I believe so.
It is at the Pepper Tree. It's for the 48th Assembly District. And so I want to encourage everybody, you can, go to @NennerMike, find it on my Twitter feed, but try to get out and get involved in this race. And again, John's right, no matter where it is in the county, because again, another statistic, another article came out today regurgitating what we already know. Everyone out there, it's the same group of people that tend to vote all the time. Same group of people, same election results. Many of us are ranting and raving in our basement. Maybe not you listening to the podcast, right? They're gnashing their teeth. They're looking at houses for sale in Tennessee. Even though, and by the way, for anybody out there, the humidity in Tennessee is about 90% right now. So if you think it's a bit sticky in LA today, amplify by 10. And nothing against the good people in Nashville, but most of them are going, dang, I wish I lived in California if it wasn't for the politics and the taxes. And everyone out there, John, you're going to be doing that. We've got some more fundraisers coming up for you. I'm amazed at the momentum that is building for your campaign. We'll talk about the exciting news here. But let's talk about, I'm going to go ahead and say it, John, kind of your idiot opponent. And I don't really know another way to put it sometimes. And for everyone out there, if you watch this, we're turning this into a vodcast. And you see it looks smooth and it looks cool and you're listening to it on the radio. There's an immense amount of planning that goes into doing shows like this, John. We talk every week. What's our subject matter going to be, if we're going to have a guest. But I want to give a thank you to Janice Hahn. And that may seem weird to you, but every week she supplies us with material, doesn't she?
Well, I'm starting to understand the method to your madness, Mike, in regards to the topics we talk about. And you say this at many times, my opponent just drops issues right into our laps and we're able to talk about them. And I think that's the issue, really, is that my opponent has allowed these big issues to continue to get bigger and bigger. She's not solving those problems. And things get worse. She's very good at photo ops. She's amazing when it comes to Instagram. Like the Instagram photos she has and her dancing and putting up pride flags, they look great. Like she has the best photographers in the business. But the reality is when she starts talking about policy, then you realize she's just going in the wrong direction. And so every time she talks about rent control or minimum wage or all the different things that have made our economy worse and made things worse, these are why I tell people I'm dying for the time where her and I are able to either debate or have forums or answer questions side by side, because I'll have the ability to contrast the way in which she attacks problems versus the way that I would.
And apparently, and I didn't know this till this week, Janice has an amazing ability to apparently see into the future. I'm just thinking I should go to her for my stock market tips. I should go to her to find out maybe if the Dodgers or the Chargers are going to win the championship next year. And what am I talking about, John?
Well, she's noted in one of her – so she's allowed as the incumbent as a supervisor to be able to send out as many emails as she wants at the taxpayer's expense. So one of those emails she sent out just the other day, yesterday, was in regards to how she's noted that this year we had a wet weather more than normal, and now it seems to be warmer than normal, and so now we can no longer rely on water. And so now she's some type of super weather person being able to tell us exactly what's going on with the weather in the future and then saying that this is why we should be spending our tax dollars on certain items. So it's like the scare tactics that come out of these politicians when they know nothing about what they're talking about is crazy. And what's even crazier is that because she's part of one party, people just continue to vote for her because they just are beholden to the same party politics over and over again. And this is what I'm trying to break through to people. It doesn't matter. Our issues are nonpartisan. And if they're not solving the problems and they've been at it for decades, why are we continually voting for them? So this email she sent out where she said, I guess she's claiming that they used to use the word global warming, but they realized that didn't work. So then they used the word climate change.
John, I'm a little bit older. In my day, we called it weather.
Yeah.
But let's just break that down.
I mean, I've heard people say we've had 100, 200-year droughts back in the day. So I don't know where politicians come off saying that they all of a sudden have noted that it's a wetter winter that we've had. So now that changes everything and we need to throw tax dollars at something new. I mean, I don't get it.
Well, I don't get it either. And by the way, everyone out there, for a little bit of fun one day, and again, this isn't about a right or wrong narrative about climate change, global warming, save the planet, help the tree. This is the reality of weather predictions. And just because, if you're out there and you're listening and you're undecided, Google this. And I've done this. How far in advance can we predict the weather? And just to let you know, due to the nature of weather itself, the most we can predict actual weather is 10 days out. We can maybe predict patterns, but if all the scientists aggregate in the planet can't do better than 10 days, I'm sometimes a little bit confused as to why Janice Hahn thinks she's Nostradamus and smarter than all the satellites put together.
I don't get it. I mean, this is the sort of thing. And I share these emails with you, Mike, just because it fuels my motivation to continue to speak up on these important issues. You know, if the current group of politicians and elected officials are trying to claim now that they know more than God knows in regards to our future weather patterns, and they look at one winter where we thank God we actually had so much rain and we were able to fill our reservoirs. You know, here's the problem with that is her party is the one that's taken our tax dollars and done nothing with it. We voted on it years ago to build more water reservoirs and capturing water. And what have they done? Absolutely nothing. They keep saying, well, there's some type of, I guess, a smelt that's up in Sacramento. So they use that as their excuse to not do some of the big projects like the Metropolitan Water District have tried to do. And every year, this is crazy, every year up in Sacramento, they grow artificially or hatch enough smelt to replace in case there was an issue. And then every year they kill all those artificial ones because the natural ones are still there. But we still have the ability to use what they're calling artificial. They're not artificial. They were just born in a hatchery. So her party is the one that's done absolutely nothing about all the water reservoirs. And now she's saying that there's some type of mythical climate change because we've had one wet winter. When are people going to wake up and say, that's nonsense? Like, could we actually have people that use common sense when it comes to spending our tax dollar?
Well, that, I think, is a very important point. Let's dive in a little bit deeper on that. First off, what Janice Hahn was spouting about this week, and I believe it's a $120 million or so project to capture rainwater. Now, on the surface, that sounds pretty good, let's say. But let's put that down for a second. One of the things, John, we complain about as a county board of supervisors, you know, it's kind of run like a secret society. I'm amazed that we know who they are at all for everybody out there. And first off, I question two things, and I want you to weigh in on this. One, where the expletive deleted does the $120 million come from? We know it comes from taxpayers, but is it state funds, federal funds, local funds, money that's being misdirected, which the government does quite often? I also would like to add something, that this isn't going to be built during someone's next tenure. Usually these jobs go to unions which support Janice Hahn, whose dad does, I believe, happen to be a builder. Nothing to see there, of course. But what's also interesting, when they announce a project for $120 million, may I give you Exhibit A, which is the bullet train to nowhere, which we voted in at $8 billion, and now we're at $100 billion and still goes to nowhere. we don't know much of the details about what Janice is spouting about, do we?
We don't know the details. So I believe that the money that she's talking about spending comes from this Proposition W, which was this new tax that's put on our properties. And what they looked at was the amount of what they call impermeable space area, the amount of area on our property where rainwater can't actually soak in. So concrete is impermeable, where landscaping area is permeable. And so that's the tax that we've been assessed for several years now to be used for recharge. It's just interesting that it's all being spread around all these cities that are within the District 4 so that she can now reach out to all those different districts to say, hey, I'm spending money here and there and there. But there's no real details on that. And then going back to what you said, this is the thing I'm always worried about is you always have the Democratic Party supporting their union friends by having prevailing wage, which was really another way of saying minimum wage. So what happens when you have to spend way more money on construction? That means you have less construction dollars to spend because a project costs a lot more. So when it costs a lot more, instead of being able to do 10 or 20 projects that you need, now you're only doing 5 or 10 projects. You're doing a lot less projects because it just artificially costs more because companies have to pay their employees more than they're even willing to work for. So it's just an artificial way of propping up the unions for more campaign contributions, and it's a complete cycle.
It is, and it's an economic cycle, too. And I know this next statement's going to be shocking to everybody, but let's go back to the bullet train. Heck, go back to remodeling your kitchen. John, I might be wrong, but I don't believe in the history of construction of anything a job has ever been done as planned. And so this rainwater reclamation project, the reality is I don't even know what the timeline is because, again, Han's not being very transparent with the public about it. I, as an average citizen, you're smarter than me, you're an engineer, might know, but I don't know what the timeline is. And whatever the timeline is, my guess it's going to go out a lot further. And my guess is it's going to end up costing a lot more. And if everybody out there wants to get outraged, think about this. Proposition W is a fixed percentage on fixed property, correct?
That's right.
Right? We'll talk about the assessors there. That's a fixed percentage on fixed property. And what's going to happen if this project gets halfway done and say they run out of money?
Well, I think you need to look at the history of what's happening with our metro projects. So what I understand is almost all these big metro projects are way over budget, and they take a lot longer than they're planned to do. And so I think if you look at metro, where we have many years of history with that, I think you could say the same thing's going to happen with these water projects, that they're going to be way over budget, they're going to take a lot longer, and there's no accountability. So at the end of the day, what is it a supervisor should be doing? A supervisor should be making sure that the people that are working on all these projects, to make sure all the departments that are in charge of these projects are being held accountable. And so it would be refreshing if once in a while we could actually hear what's going on without having to delve through and try to pour through reports that are very difficult to read. Nobody has time to do that. Even news reporters probably have a heck of a time trying to decipher what they see either in a metro or other public works project. I think it's time for our supervisors to shine the light on what's going on, because at the end of the day, they're have to be held accountable to the taxpayers. The taxpayers are the ones that need to know what's happening with their monies, because it's always the taxpayer that just pays. But then if a project fails, we don't hear about that and we don't see people being held accountable. We just pour more money into that project to get it done, and then we forget about the other project that needed to get done. So I've been telling people we have a $44 billion budget. It's actually now down to $39 billion. And it's probably because revenues are down to $39 billion, and they're trying to balance that out. So then we start to have to ask, now why is the budget going down? And why is the amount of revenues coming down? And much of the revenues are from sales taxes or from property taxes. And there's so many questions to be asking about what's happening. So it goes back to that accountability. What is happening in the county?
In addition, and this is the part where I've got to wonder sometimes, and this is my belief, that Janice Hahn and the Board of Supervisors, I know everybody's out there talking about civics class, and you probably should take one. But how about we make you take a course in basic economics because of what Janice Hahn also announced this week? And let me frame this for everybody out there. So we talk about county revenues go down, correct?
Right.
Because there's less businesses to tax. The economy goes up. There's more tax dollars to complete projects like the one that Janice Hahn is talking about. Building the tunnel requires people paying prevailing wages, which are going to be higher than minimum wage just by definition.
Of course.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Janice Hahn this week announced that she is striving to make the minimum wage in LA County for everything. That's whether, by the way, you flip a burger, nothing against people flipping burgers, opening a door at a hotel, thank you very much to the doorman, by the way, but any job you do, that your minimum wage will be ramping up to $30 per hour. I don't think Janice grasped, one, that's going to be less job. The doorman's job is simply going to go away. Businesses, as happening, are simply not going to open in Los Angeles County. And the other effect, I don't think, and I really don't know if Janice has had an economics class, that tunnel that she just announced earlier in the week, stay with me, everybody, that when that prevailing wage is renegotiated, it's going to be incrementally higher than the minimum wage by definition. So Janice Hahn, don't you think she should maybe keep her hands out of the economy?
Yes.
Economic opportunity is being destroyed.
Well, right. And I want to be clear that I am not anti-private sector union. Mm-hmm. But what I believe, first of all, I don't think there should be a prevailing wage. If a union company wants to pay a higher wage and to attract and retain the best people, then they should do that. But it's the market that should dictate. People have the freedom to work or not work for companies. And so if you're choosing company A that's paying, let's say, $30 an hour versus company B that's paying $25 and everything else is equal, they're going to work for company A. You don't need the government to set that artificial floor. And so I believe that for government contracts, it should not always just be union. It should be union, non-union, being able to compete all the time against each other. So at the end of the day, it's the residents, the citizens, the taxpayers that get the best value. The job of government, like you said, is to get out of the way to make sure that our citizens get the best value for their projects.
Isn't that minimum wage by Janice, though, not just for union workers, it's for every worker in L.A. County?
It's for every worker in L.A. County.
So let's get your arms around that, too. So that actually, in my opinion, if I join a union right now, I think I'm going to get better wages and better benefits. I vote to go union. That's, again, these are private unions,
sure,
not the city unions. Okay, let's keep it separate from that, the public unions. But she just knocked the wage up for everybody. Kind of why join a union and pay union dues unless the unions, again, negotiate higher than the minimum wage? Otherwise, what's kind of the point? And that leads to the cycle of increased inflation.
Well, increased inflation. So that ends up hurting every single person in the county. And when you have inflation in LA County or higher prices, such as higher sales tax, where do you think people go to do business? Outside of LA County. So the whole thing is just spiraling downward. We need to take these pressures and taxes off of the books and get back to being competitive as a county.
So, John, you've done a good job. We've got about 2 minutes left. Again, we're getting ready to go. What they call tape to live. So the show is shorter. It's got to be on time. We've got to end on time, or the gods of radio storm down the hall and carry us out in chains. Or that's rather dramatic. That's not how it happens. But Boiling it down to the 4 basic points that you have, we focus today on economic opportunity and the long-term impact that the decisions that the County Board of Supervisors make today has a drastic effect on the county, doesn't it, and the future of L.A.
Every single day, absolutely. And that's why the core 4 of infrastructure, economic opportunity, homelessness, and public safety, they all work together. So we talked about economic opportunity, but it affects the others.
John, what's your Twitter handle?
Save LA County, and the website's johncruikshank.us.
Saving LA County, this beautiful place where we live, from the draconian measures that are being done today, taking place in the future. I can't think of too much more important, and I know many people out there, John, are going to be distracted by the shiny object, which we call the presidential election, but at the end of the day, they have to vote. They have to vote for you. We have to change the way it's run. Everyone out there, do what you can. Do what you can to get involved with John's campaign. I'm at Netter Mike. Again, starting on the 20th, encourage people to listen on a Sunday morning when they get up. This has been Save Los Angeles with John Cruikshank, Mike Netter. We will be back next week.